Questions are growing about why one of the most notorious serial killers in U.S. history was suddenly booked into the King County Jail today.
Gary Ridgway, who is better known as the Green River Killer, is normally locked up at the state penitentiary in Walla Walla. Now, for the first time in 20 years, he's in a Seattle jail cell. Ryan Sims has been following this story since it broke today. Ryan, authorities are staying tight-lipped about why he's suddenly at the King County Jail.
Yeah, very much so. All the King County Sheriff's Office would tell us and was willing to say is that they're still investigating possible links between crimes and Gary Ridgway, but still questions adding up fast. For the first time in 2 decades, the Green River Killer is back here in Washington's West Side.
It just sent a wave of nausea through me.
Among those reacting to this news, Donna Hurley, whose 15-year-old daughter Lori was killed by Gary Ridgway all the way back in 1985.
My heart goes out to those detectives and those families who are waiting on this parasite.
Donna says she had no idea Ridgway had even left the state pen in Walla Walla until KOMO News called her and told her about it.
I guess at one time thought maybe he had killed upwards of 70, 80 people. How many remains have been found?
Authorities have often wondered that same thing. In a quick statement to KOMO, the King County Sheriff's Office said it continues to investigate cases with Ridgway's possible involvement. While his reason for being in King County hasn't been released, at least not yet, Donna thinks that there is a possibility that he is working with authorities to unearth victims who have never been found or identified.
We were the hostages. He could come up at any time and say, oh, I can tell you where there's 1 more body or 5 more bodies.
Ridgway is currently serving 49 consecutive life sentences for murder, each one representing the people he killed during his killing spree from the early 80s through the late 90s.
If people think they don't carry this in their hearts every day, they're wrong. It's affected a lot of lives.
A lot of lives over a lot of time. Talking about the people he murdered, it was only this past January 2024, when one of his victims was identified 40 years after she went missing. Coming to you live from Seattle tonight, Ryan Sims, KOMO News.
Good evening and welcome to ARC Seattle at 10. I am Preston Phillips. Tonight, one of the most notorious serial killers ever known has been moved to the King County Jail. Gary Ridgway, who is more commonly known as the Green River Killer, is back in Seattle for the first time in 20 years. Ridgway is serving life in prison without the possibility of parole at the state penitentiary in Walla Walla for the murders of 49 women. We talked with the mother of one of his victims tonight about this move.
This miserable piece of humanity has used the remains of their loved ones to save his own life.
Tonight, we're still working to learn why he was moved to the King County Jail. Ryan Sims joining us now. He's been covering this story all afternoon and evening. Ryan, the news of Ridgway being moved here to Seattle was a shock to so many people, including the victims of the families of his victims.
And especially to them, Preston. I mean, you got to consider this, that for decades, and it really was decades, they went without any answers at all. And many of them, it took 20, 30 years for the DNA evidence to come through, for them to even know what had happened to their loved ones, that their loved ones were truly dead, and also to find out that their loved ones, they met their fate under the hands of a serial killer like that one, like the Green River Killer. And so it has taken so much emotional bandwidth to process all of that. And you can imagine today, we spoke to the woman that you heard kind of leading into this piece. She had no idea any of this until we called her, and you heard the shock in her face when I spoke to her over the phone. She was hoping to finally put all of this behind her. You know, her own daughter went missing 1983. Her bones were discovered 1985, yet it wasn't until last December, we're talking about December of 2023, that DNA evidence finally identified those bones, allowed her to retrieve her daughter's remains, to bury her daughter, and to concretely know that her daughter did die at the hands of Gary Ridgway. She long suspected it, but everything was confirmed in December. So finally in December, just a few months ago, after 40 years, she's finally able to get this closure. Well, you can imagine her shock today when a news crew calls her and tells her that, you know, by the way, this guy that was convicted of killing your daughter, he's now been transferred across the state. We don't know why or anything, because authorities are not saying anything. she expressed dismay at that and disappointment. Now, she told us that she hopes it is for a good cause and that the reason why this is all happening is that he in some way has agreed to cooperate or is somewhat working with authorities on maybe identifying victims who are still out there who have never been found or never been identified. So that's the hope. And so far, that seems like a likely scenario given the little that we've been told by the sheriff's office. They say that they are still working to connect Ridgway to existing cases where he may be involved. And so again, he is out here for the first time in 21 years, but talking about that mother that we've been speaking about, again, it's quite the thing to know that, you know, she said that she finally had closure, and after all that time now, again, today she finds out that this has happened. It seems like, according to families who have gone through the unthinkable, having their loved one die at the hands of a serial killer, that the only place they want Ridgway, understandably, is inside a state penitentiary, locked up in Walla Walla, and nowhere else do they want him. And so the news that he is now in King County, in the heart of Seattle, definitely locked up. There's a lot of guards around, we would imagine, still very, very secure. But the fact that he is now across the state and he moved across the state without them even being told, definitely unsettling for them, Preston.
Right, and I think also what's unsettling is when you look up Gary Ridgway and his past victims, the many, anywhere online, and you scroll through all of the victims, the 49 at least that have been identified, you see many who haven't been found. The remains haven't been discovered. So there are many more, as you know, and possibly even more than that, that we don't know where they are and may not even have been talked about at this point. So it's unclear exactly where they're going to be dealing with him or where he might be leading them. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of this unfolds.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so far we've talked about 49 confirmed cases, but over the years, authorities have been given every reason to suspect it could be 70 cases, 80 cases. That is just staggering. And if it is 80 cases, we don't know if it is, but if it is 80 cases, that means at least 30 other people are still out there and have been out there for decades as a result of this. And so again, going back to that mother, we got her reaction today. She said that really kind of the only kind of saving grace she has with today's news is the fact that perhaps Ridgway finally working with authorities on getting them the remains, getting them the identities of some of the other people still out there. That is her saving grace. But what a story this is. Again, his first time here in 21 years here in Seattle.
Be interested to find out why now, if that is the case. Why would he have any reason to want to do that? Is there something they're offering him? Is he in bad health? I mean, I'm curious. I think he's around 75 years old right now. What would want to make him come out here and help authorities in any way whatsoever? Ryan, keep us posted as this story continues to develop. Of course, a lot of people interested in what the outcome of this is. We appreciate it.
Thanks.